So some of you guys know that I'm really loving to use astrology for, looking at political outcomes and also world events. But I'm really fascinated with that. So I'm going to start a series called, I think, World Event Astrology, and you'll find a playlist for it, or maybe political astrology, and you'll find a playlist for it. You'll feel, I'm just doing this on the fly today on September 2nd, because I'm really wanting to look at elections a lot. I mean, I actually accurately predicted, go back to my playlist, that Donald Trump would not win the election. I accurately predicted that the Democrats would win and prevail in the Georgia runoff election and all of that. So it's all in the astrology sky. It can be seen. I go into a lot of good reasons why I predicted that. It wasn't just a flip of a tarot card. That aside, tarot cards can be very handy. So we have an election coming this fall in Canada. And guess what? It was called by the incumbent, or the current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. I think he thought he could swing an election in a pandemic season for some reason. I would have been his astrologer if he had asked me, and I'd say, don't do it, dude. You are so going to lose. When he first announced the election, maybe a month ago, I drew a tarot card called the Hangman, which means an overturn or reversal of fortune. And that alone led me to want to investigate why that he was likely to lose this election. And in the polls right now, he's surprisingly not doing well. There's a conservative opposition from somebody named O'Toole, and there's the NDP party, and they're both taking the votes away from him. And it looks like, I don't think he's going to win. It looks like the chart is right. And I think he has a majority government now. I say that because I am Canadian, but I've been living in my own world. I'm not very political. And so if at the very best, he has a minority government and he had a majority. So his gamble to run the election has failed. And the very worst, of course, is he's going to lose the election. Either of those is possible. I think he's going to lose the election based on this chart, but I'm predicting a loss of the election, or I'm predicting a dismal outcome in which he goes into less power than more power after the election. Now, I'm not sure yet if anything I said there was true about he had a majority in the government, if that was true or not. So if I'm wrong, I'm just giving you that. I'm not going to go research. I just want to show you his chart and why he's going to lose. Learn a little bit of astrology for predictions of world events. In this case, we're lucky to have his birth chart, so I will pull it up. Okay, let's share the screen of Justin Trudeau, the current Prime Minister of Canada. And just to be clear, I just checked when I was getting that chart for you guys, and no, he has a minority government from a 2019 election. He had a majority in 2015. So if he's going to lose something in this election, he's going to actually lose the election. So this is his natal chart. And I'm going to keep these little videos up to no longer than 15 minutes. So hang in there. This is good for your astrology learning. It's good for me as well to practice this stuff. So, my main thing that I looked at when I checked his chart out and realized that he's likely not to be reelected, the thing that jumped out at me and grabbed me by the horns, or so to speak, or whatever, it has a lot to do with his actual current eclipse cycle. And I realized I forgot to put the midheaven in there. Let me put it back in, guys. I'm sorry about that. And I believe he has an asteroid up there too. So let's add our asteroids. So I'm like, where did the midheaven go? Where's this high noon? How funny is that, guys? Okay. So we're just bringing him back. And if I lost you, I'm resuming my share. So hang on, and it's about the eclipse that's coming up this November. So yes, we have an election, and I know you guys can see the chart, but now the software is not showing it to me. This September 20th, and there is an eclipse on November the 19th that is going to help derail him. Now you're probably thinking, well, if there's an eclipse November 19th and the election September 20th, why would that eclipse work? Because I swear eclipses have retrocausality. They really do. It's like I've seen it over and over again. Like there's a pre-window before eclipses, and I guess it can be as long as up to, in some astrologers' minds, a month. But I'm thinking this is definitely winging back at him. I'm wondering what it is. So I'm playing my own investigative sleuth. But up here, his midheaven is at 27 Taurus. The eclipse that's going to happen is at 27 Taurus. It's a lunar eclipse in Taurus. Lunar eclipses tend to be revelatory, discriminating, new light shining on an unknown, unseen situation. This is his high noon. This is his career. This is his, his path. And you know, there's a star there called Algol, and it's about the head of the Medusa. And it's a malignant and malefic, bad star in the lore of stars. And Algol can be about losing one's head. Off with their heads. Well, I mean, if you were the head of a country and you're having your midheaven and Algol, it certainly does say that at one point he's going to lose his head. But that's different than stepping down or resigning from the prime ministership, or just, you know, just normally losing an election. This is much more intense. Now, you may not know this, but we have a lot of Canadians who don't like this whole for the vaccine mandate passport stuff that's going on here in this country. And his opposition candidate, Mr. O'Toole, is saying we will have people test for COVID or COVID negative results or what other things he can do, and not make everybody have to be vaccinated in order to go to a restaurant, a hair salon, a fitness club, whatever. And that's getting some traction. And we have a lot of energy in this country, like you do in the United States and the rest of the world, around what the level of governmental power can be over our sort of fundamental freedoms to choose. So maybe he'll lose because of that. And that's the sort of losing his head. I think he would have called the election a month ago because he thought he was doing well, because the pandemic seemed under control. Delta hadn't surged yet. And he thought he might get kudos for well handling pandemic energy, possibly. But I would have cautioned him as his astrologer and saying, hey, dude, you got a November 19th eclipse on your midheaven under the light of Algol. Could be a little bit of a dicey roll of the dice. That's number one. Okay, the other thing I'd say, just looking at his natal chart, right, straight up, besides that eclipse, that could derail a re-election campaign and cause some frustration or challenge or losing the election. You know, he is having eclipses going through his 10th house. That's the eclipse cycle. The North Node transiting his 10th house is waning this fall. That's why we're having an eclipse in Taurus, right? But the vibe there, I'd say, is that, you know, he's going through a huge amount of turmoil in the last year and a half, an intensity in the 10th house. He may be tired, guys. I mean, he may have not wanted to really win. Maybe he thought, well, if I win it, it's destiny. I'll stick in longer. Otherwise, I'm just kind of tired. And I'm wondering if that's also not going on underneath the surface. Basically, you know, maybe he's looking at wanting to pioneer a new direction in his career as the North Node transits his 10th house, and is asking him maybe to question the current path he's on, because change of career, change of platform, change of public status, 10th house North Node transit. You know, he's also looking to me in this chart like it's quite possible that, let me get the timing on that because I'm just using my transit in my head mind chart, you know. Okay, got it. Yeah, so Mars is a bit dicey right now. Mars is invisible since August the 23rd or so until the end of November, which will encompass the election, right? And the house of winning. You want to win something. I want to win this election. I want to win this game of poker is the 5th house. And because Mars exalts his 5th house, he does win things, right? He wins elections. Mars is in charge of Justin Trudeau winning exalted things, you know? Saturn has a say in that too. And Saturn's retrograde right now, owner of his 5th house. And Mars, the exaltation ruler of his 5th house of winning, is also retrograde. Again, I would have said, you know, the two powerhouses for winning, Saturn retrograde, Mars retrograde, not Mars retrograde, sorry, Mars invisible. So his Saturn Lord is retrograding in Aquarius. Can't even see the house of winning. It's an aversion, can't witness it, can't say, hey, let me help you win. Saturn is kind of impotent to help him win, and retrograde at that, and in a place where he can't help him, can't see the 5th house from Aquarius. And that's why I think he's tired of his job, guys, because Saturn going through his Aquarian 6th house can make work seem hard, can make your job seem really hard. And that's been the case since December 17th or 19th, when Saturn stepped into Aquarius, although Saturn tiptoed into Aquarius for a few months in I think it would have been April, May of 2020. And he's getting tired of this job. I can tell you. And I think his marriage is in trouble. I see that in other places in the chart. I don't know if he's having an affair or whatever, but I don't want to gossip. But you can see that he's likely to have a divorce or a separation from his wife within a year from this reading. So when I look at, and public figures are fair game to talk about. So I wouldn't do this, a private person's marriage story, you know, on public radio. But the Mars invisible, Mars exalts his 5th house. And so if Mars was visible, I'd say go for it. Mars can help you out. Mars is invisible, traveling through Scorpio during No, Mars is in Scorpio after the election. Mars is in, not only is the exaltation lord of his winning house, not able to witness it because of invisibility. He's kind of under the weather, ducked underneath the covers, hiding out and taking a nap, as he's maybe acting in weird ways, as he's invisible in the sky, too close to the sun for us to see him, getting ready to rebirth himself in the end of November. But on top of that, Mars is journeying through the sign of Libra during the election, if I'm correct. Now, this is where I'm going to grab my transit chart because my brain has just hit, the mush zone. Yeah, Mars will be in Libra. Like, I just know that. Like, of course, Mars will be in Libra, September 20th. Is that true? Don't you love it when the astrologer doesn't remember her sky? Let's just grab a transit chart. Sorry, I shouldn't have done it that way. I'm going to open up the transit chart just to make sure that I'm telling you the truth. And I will keep this whole reading short, but I would like you to see why this election is going to go sideways for Justin Trudeau, most likely. Yeah, there's Mars in Virgo. So maybe I'm wrong. Mars might have not made it to Libra, but the aftermath, well, let's see. No wonder I was confused. He will be there, but he's like puttering closer and closer. Okay. Mars ingress. Okay. Thank you, universe. Yeah, so Mars is definitely in Libra, and Mars is in the sign of his detriment or exile. And Mars is the exaltation ruler for the house of winning for Justin Trudeau. So we have Mars squaring the winning house, not necessarily a good thing, and invisible and in detriment in Libra, where Mars is not likely to pull it out of a hat for Justin Trudeau to win. Election day is the 20th of September, and let's just see where Mars exactly sits on the 20th of September. Mars is at 3 degrees of Libra, pretty close to Pluto, the god of death. What is dying here? What is dying? Our earnings and the money we get from our job is the second house. A death of the source of the earnings of your money, like you're no longer prime minister, quite possibly could be it. And Mars is squaring Neptune. Could it be giving him like a hard shake up and wake up? Not squaring, sextiling, but waking him up from some sort of illusion or delusion that he could win. I don't know. I'm just making this stuff up. Oh, there's Venus. Okay, yeah. Mars is doing a lot of stuff at this time. Okay, 20 Venus. Okay, but more importantly, let's nail it, the story down. If Justin Trudeau was going to win this election, I would be surprised. I'm going to show you a couple other charts to suggest the loss, but this at its very least is highly suggestive of a loss. The North Node is pretty close to his natal Saturn at the time in the house of career. This is why he's in power. Saturn in the 10th house can make you a kind of figurehead, a statesman, a leader, etc. And North Node is, within a degree of that, shake up, change energy. It's really intense around that theme of governance, power, leadership, public reputation. And and even Saturn in the sky, on his North Node, on Saturn, forces of destiny and karma are really working in his chart right now to change things up. I think that he wanted a change, but he wasn't sure, so he gambled on an election. Now, the other chart that's fascinating about this is solar arcs, and then I'm going to look at his solar return. Maybe I'll just grab the solar return first. If I was just looking at a solar return as a straight up chart, even, it's pretty darn cool. Let's pull it up just as a straight solar return. If you don't know what a solar return chart is, it's what happens when the sun returns to the astronomical degree and place it was when you were born. And it's a snapshot of the sky that is sort of like the major themes and the major energies of the year are the age ahead from your birthday to birthday. So it was December 24th birthday, the dude is Capricornian, he's solid, he's steady, but he likes the rules and he wants to play by them. And he wants to keep the law and keep the rules and keep the system in place, right? And that's what he's bucking against right now with a lot of irate Canadians who think he's overstepped his reach. But anyway, and here you have this solar return snapshot. And the snapshot tells me a few things, like just a general theme. Will he win the election? Probably not. Mars likes to end things, cut, tie, sever, disrupt on the midheaven. And don't forget, the Mars in the sky is now invisible, but the solar return Mars was visible in December. But he's got some cutting, snipping, hedge trimming going on in his career right now. What is Mars going to snip away? Well, his high noon position, his leadership position, that kind of vibe. That would not be a surprise at all, that would be cut off, cut away, and ending. And you can also see the wounded healer up here close to the midheaven, the wounds around that, the machinations of fate and destiny, the lot of fortune. You know, the moon exalted in the solar return has to do with your status of exalted moon in the 10th house. Popular with the masses is what it means, okay? And popular with the people, popular with the public, popular with the masses. He has been pretty popular, more or less, declining and waning over the years. But we have a sudden change or disruption around the exalted moon, the popular moon. And it doesn't bode well, because a sudden disruption and sudden change, if you're already somewhat popular and you were in power, is a disruption likely in the opposite direction. And on top of that, I think his soul wanted him to change anyway. That solar return sun is trying the disruption. It's like, get me out of here, dudes. Get me out of here. I saw something else in here. What was it? Okay, well, let's keep going. Well, let's do this. Recently used, let's put Justin Trudeau's natal chart around the solar return. That's kind of always fun, because it gives you another, oh, I didn't do it that way. We'll do it this way. Let's put his solar return chart around, wrap it around his chart in a bi-wheel. So sometimes you can get picture snapshots really nicely this way as well, you know, that show us pictures that we didn't see right away. So his rising sign, by the way, to remind everybody, is Virgo, Mr. Details, Mr. Grounded Solid Earth dude, all right? And the ascendant of the solar return is in the 12th house of undoing, self-undoing, self-sabotage. I think he sabotaged himself by calling the election. The ascendant, when it's in Leo, cannot reach or talk to his natal ascendant. So there's like an aversion between the two identities of the year and who he is in the world. But, you know, to have your ascendant in that house of self-undoing on the south node is a pretty strong call that he's just about to derail his career. Whether he's aware of self-sabotage in this election call or not, I don't know. His marriage and love life may be stressed out as well in this chart, you know, potentially anyway. Saturn on the goddess of love, you know, possibly pressure there from the solar return toward his love relationships. I saw it in another chart. I think it might have been the solar arc directions that I'll pull up as well. It looks like his marriage may be ending in the next year. I'm not sure for sure, but that's maybe his home life and his love life and his marriage life is really rocky, and the public life is taking away his time he has to try to work on it. That could be what's really going on behind the scenes. Just maybe. Let's go to the solar arc chart. That's the progressed chart, roughly every planet moving a degree a year ahead throughout the sky from the time of birth, dragged along on a chariot. Directed solar arc. And we're in the roughly September 2nd when I'm doing the recording, what's happening in this chart. Oh, that's what I thought. See, this goddess of the harvest, she's got a scythe. Her name is Ceres, and she's also the mother Demeter in Greek mythology, who rescues her daughter from the underworld. Anyway, I often see that happen to be like a scythe, a harvesting, a reaping, a cutting of Juno, the goddess of marriage. So I possibly mean that there's a reaping and a cutting of the marriage goddess from this goddess Ceres. And look, you know, you can see that that's at 1310 and this is at 1430. So it's more than a year away that it's precise, but you know, it's going to be next year in 22. You're going to see something going on in his marriage story, and maybe announcements around separation or endings or something like that, just possible. Also, the other thing is that in terms of his career and whether or not this is a sabotage election, in his solar arc time, you've got this Mars that's finally navigated its way to his lot of fortune. Now that's in play during this election. It's still in orb because his lot of fortune is really a 20-degree lot when you round it up. And that's a 20 degree in 6 minutes. So Mars is hitting the lot of his fortune, his destiny. It's kind of that vicissitudes of fate and fortune for wealth and fame and success that goes up and down like the wheel of fortune. And Mars is, as I said, the cut, snip, sever guy, and his solar arc Mars out of dignity, hitting a lot of fortune in the house where his midheaven is, his career. Looks like, again, the same narrative is playing out. He's getting ready for a fall. He's getting ready for a fall. And, Chiron has already gone over his midheaven. That's not recent, guys. That's Chiron anaretic, getting ready to cross over to the next sign This guy was a teacher, right? He was a school teacher before he was a prime minister. He may have been feeling wounded in his career for the last 2 years, and he did lose in 2019 the majority. It was Chiron on his midheaven 2 years ago that he lost the majority in Parliament and now has a minority government. And so he felt wounded then, and he's still a walking wounded, and that wounded part of the chart is getting ready to change into a whole new direction, into the Gemini ruled 10th house, quite possibly with Athena here. It's about the publication of a book once he's out of office, because Athena in the 9th house, see it all the time. People who are really have a really successful book in their life that they've published. And Chiron will be in the house of Gemini, the sign of the writer. But yeah, so no matter which way I look, it looks like he's going to lose the election. And I think he's going to not be that unhappy, but relieved. I think that he unconsciously sabotaged himself in order to find some new joy in his life. That's my take on it, really. He was talking on the news the other day how he's a very sensitive person, really. I don't want to go into all the whys of that. He's got more of a noble heart than that. It has to do with his stars and asteroids. And I think he's feeling beleaguered and disappointed. And there's a lot of angry Canadians who are like shouting nasty epithets at him in public now, like being plagued by people shouting really unnice things toward him in protest of vaccination passports and all that stuff that's going on. And I don't think he can handle that either. I think this is not who he's about. I don't think it's what he's about. And yeah, he's got like fire, like, a natal moon in fire, and he should not be that sensitive, etc. But there's other things going on in the chart. That's a whole other reading that makes me think that he's not really down to be picked on. He doesn't want to be picked on. All righty. That's my Justin Trudeau, fall of Justin Trudeau. He will not, I don't think, win this election. I can't see how, given what I'm seeing in the charts. All right. Thanks for listening to the new series. It's going to be like political astrology or world event astrology. I'll have a playlist where I'll start collecting them all, and you can always go back and look at them later. But I did call the Donald Trump loss. I did call the Democrats would win the 2 seats in Georgia and take the House. And so I saw all of this in my predictions using astrology. So it's just astrology, guys. It works. All righty, I'm going to go now. And I hope some of you will start following this series who have an inclination toward looking at astrology for predicting things like elections or looking at world events through the lens of astrology. Ciao. Oh, don't forget, like and subscribe. Check out my money code below. After I said all this in the beginning, I think you'll like that I'm doing a course. It's September 12th. And of course, this won't be relevant if you listen to this later, but you get the gist. Ciao, ciao.